Hello and welcome to this year's Cloud Launch and Learn Marathon. You are curious about security and DevOps and how they fit together? Well, this session is for you. We will see how GitOps processes can be used to incorporate security into cloud automation. A little word about me. My name is Adil Touati and I am a cloud and DevOps advocate based in Montreal, Canada. I help my customers securely use the cloud and automate their infrastructure and applications deployment using DevOps best practices. To understand how to leverage GitOps for security, let's first have a look at what is GitOps and why it matters. So what is GitOps? It is an operational framework which takes the best practices used in application development, such as version control, collaboration, compliance, and CI/CD pipelines, and take these and applies them to infrastructure automation. In other words, GitOps uses three main components: infrastructure as code, pull requests or merge requests as agents for the change, and automation via CI/CD. Let's see in detail each of these components. What are they? What is the role for each one of them? And how do we use them in GitOps? The most important in GitOps is that the environment and their configuration reside in Git. I use the term infrastructure as code, but it is not limited to infrastructure. It can also be policies, environments and their configuration in general, the network configuration, and so on. All that covers configuration of deployments which need to execute and operate applications. Instead of manually making configuration changes, you describe this configuration in code and store it in Git. This is the core of GitOps. Most of the time, this code is declarative, which means you describe the desired states you want your infrastructure to be in. Thus, automation will reconcile the state of your infrastructure and change it if needed according to the source of truth, which is in Git. However, and dependent on the maturity phase of the GitOps teams, some of them might be still using imperative code and continue moving towards more mature phases where they adopt more and more declarative code for their infrastructure. Of course, this code is stored in Git and you can use whichever solution or tool you prefer. And one of the greatest benefits of using Git tools is to have a common and unified interface for all teams. The other component of GitOps, as mentioned before, in which illustrates why it is important to use Git, is that pull requests or merge requests become the change agents. They are used as gating mechanisms for changes which will take their way to production. Simply put, a pull request enables pushing code from one's working branch, which can represent dev, staging, or production environments, into the main branch. Every time you need to apply changes, you will create a new branch, then you will add your changes to it. When these changes are ready to be pushed into the appropriate environment, you request that they be merged to the main branch by creating a pull request or a merge request. Here, gating takes place in the form of code review by other members of the team, security review by members of the security team, and so on. Then the pull request is approved by all the stakeholders, and then it is an opportunity to incorporate compliance controls. For instance, reduce the number of people who are allowed to merge to master. This is very important in increasing the security and compliance of such changes all in one tool. The last component is the automatic reconciliation based on CI/CD pipelines. The GitOps process continually makes sure that the state of the deployed infrastructure is in sync with the desired state defined in the code. If a drift is detected, automation triggers the compliance of the infrastructure. When a team starts using and getting used to GitOps, they will eventually trigger the pipelines only through pull requests. But the more the maturity of the team increases, they will use more sophisticated core code where those pipelines will be scheduled to execute even if code has not changed in Git. This is in order to prevent configuration drifts that can be used or might be used by manual changes of the configuration. But of course, all changes in GitOps are automatic, no manual intervention. Now that we went through the definition of GitOps, let's see why it is important for organizations and what are the values it brings to the table. When you use infrastructure as code, your environment is already auto-documented. However, if your environments are manually configured using the GUI, you need your documentation to be completely separate. And if a new member joins the team and they will need to understand existing environments, I hope your documentations are up to date. Also, it is even necessary when you want to collaborate with other teams or simply remember what you changed a couple of weeks ago. Of course, a minimum of documentation is needed and can be in the form of README files in the repo. Using infrastructure as code simplifies sharing of the configuration with other teams of the organization, which promotes the reusability of the code and also the collaboration. Finally, infrastructure as code makes it easy to duplicate and provision similar infrastructure, maybe in another region or environment like UAT, staging, or dev, and can come handy in case of a DR. Another great benefit is version control, rollbacks and roll forward. Most importantly, when the version of the application depends on the infrastructure configuration, for instance, when an app requires a specific configuration of this infrastructure, such as sizing, resources, OS versions, and so on, it is more efficient and simpler to couple these, thus guaranteeing that in the case of a rollback, the application continues to work properly. Also, in case you encounter an infrastructure issue, you can roll back to the latest known correct version of the configuration, then investigate the issue in an isolated environment. This will be a powerful benefit for service continuity. Automation brings a lot of benefits, mainly the ability to deploy infrastructures fast and introduce improvements and changes frequently to catch up with the fast pace of the development of the applications that run on these infrastructures. Also, automation help quickly and automatically correct any eventual drifts that may occur. Finally, and the most important set of benefits that I want to illustrate in this talk is the GitOps allows incorporating security and compliance as part of the process of infrastructure management. For instance, permissions on the environments are restricted to a limited number of team members who are allowed to perform actions like merge changes from branches to the main branch for changes to the infrastructure. This allows the integration of the central source, which is Git, in the audit and compliance requirements of the organization. Compliance with the change management process using a simplified way of gathering approvals for these changes through pull requests instead of change board meetings. Also, security teams are involved and can be involved in the process of change management and then be part of, the approval process using pull requests, which will enable them to understand and validate the security implications and requirements in the configuration of the infrastructure before any changes are applied. Thank you for your time, and I hope that this session has helped shed some light on why GitOps is important as well from a security perspective.